I was always interested in the traditional Mi'kmaq canoe. It's kind of the perfect design because it actually evolved over time to the point where it became a story about its construction. So that story almost becomes a vessel for the knowledge that gets passed on from generation to generation. So fathers can teach sons or grandfathers can teach grandchildren how to actually construct it, and every element of the traditional canoe had some kind of story attached to it so that it becomes an ingrained memory in the learner. I was born in Nova Scotia. I studied modern architecture. When I finished school, I ended up doing some work with traditional windows. That really drew me towards heritage architecture. There's been a building culture here for a long time that's evolved here. I get a lot of enjoyment from finding people that want to move forward in the Maritimes and make it their home and have an appreciation for what it has been, what it is, and where it's going. I had a lot of mentors through school and in life. I've been really fortunate to learn from some very masterful builders and some very masterful architects. I always seem to be drawn to people that have an understanding of the details of things. Just like the evolution of building has been a dialogue between builders, it's also been a dialogue between builders and people. And I think that is really important. I think I enjoy capturing people's imagination and crystallizing it into a place that they can live in, that meets their expectations and exceeds their expectations. It's funny to say this, but I actually enjoy dismantling buildings just as much as building them, which is where my interest in salvaging materials comes from. I'm often trying to find materials like that that I can incorporate in a new way or in an old way into a space because it has a real story behind it and because I know that somebody's put a lot of sweat and effort into, just that piece of wood. It's a much more sustainable way of building than just taking everything to the landfill and then starting from scratch. There's a lot of life that can be found in something being a little bit worn out. And it's the same way with a building. A door swing being captured in the floorboards or in the door jamb, or a particular window that gets opened all the time that has a particular view outside, or where somebody might have been hollering to call somebody in for dinner or whatever. Everything tells a story, and I think that's something that's worth keeping. The story is always alive and gets passed on, and it changes to suit its context because every context or every recipient is different. And regional building culture, it's not always something that you find in a book and can be repeated, because what you find in a book is very black and white and it can only be repeated in a certain way. Something that's taught from one person to the other has a lot of gray area. Every recipient is different and has to be taught in a different way. We live in a changing world. Things are changing all the time, so it's important that that tradition continues and changes with the environment that we live in, always suits the environment that we live in, and is always a representation or is always expressing the culture that we have here.